Welcome back. Brand new edition of Local Focus. I'm your host, Sebastian Noel. When this airs, we will be in week number 3 of district play in basketball. So it's getting close to the end here. Be sure to log on to our website at proviewnetworks.com. Schedule of all those district matchups. We are going to pause our basketball line of guests this week because, he used to hoop, but not anymore. My guest today is widely regarded as the best defensive back in the state of New Mexico from the state championship Cleveland Storm. AJ Manning's in the house. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. It's glad to get you. I know it's been a while since the season's been over, but what a season for the Storm. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so ever since in the beginning of the season, we had there was a lot of doubt around us, how we had 2 to 3 returning starters on the defensive side, how we're going to come together. And throughout the season, we just became better teammates, started hanging out more. And, I always hint on hanging out more because I feel like that's really big on team chemistry. And if you have good team chemistry, then your season will go good.
I think it's an interesting point that you mentioned there, right? Because the amount of people lost from the previous team, right? I don't think anyone ever goes into the season thinking, okay, well, Cleveland's not going to be good, right? It never gets to that point, obviously, because of the standard of excellence that's been built there. But I think it's fair to have questions heading into the season, and I'll put myself in that camp. I was amongst them where I just thought in my mind, at least for the defense, how could the defense be as good or better when you lose a guy like Strat and you lose a Madrano and you lose all those pieces that graduated? So the question marks were definitely on your side of the ball, weren't they?
Yes, sir. So all our backups from last year, the 2 years ago, I would say in 2024, Strat and Isaac, Chuka, and Marcus Laquesta, all their backups were really good. I feel like they could have all the kids after them could have started on majority of the other teams in New Mexico.
Did you feel a little burden now we're graduating these key pieces who are stars at their position, but did you feel a burden heading into that next year? But I'm going to be back, and I'm a dog back here. So, time for me to step up my leadership role on this defense and make sure we don't skip a beat.
So me, Solomon Kegler, and Michael Haynes were the only 3 returning starters on the defense, and us 3 have been best friends since 2nd grade. So we've been playing together a lot, and we all knew as a collective group how we had to pick it up and bring everybody else up that hasn't been starting before.
And I'm sure you guys use that as motivation too, right?
Yes, absolutely. We've always had, felt some type of way about La Cueva. They beat us years before we got there, and then they've always just been, the big loud mouths. But it's okay because I feel like we weren't the cockiest team. We've always, we weren't always super talkative. I just feel like that wasn't us. We're more of just prove it on the field how it is.
But, you guys do a fair share of talking as well. I've been on the sideline during a Cleveland game. You guys are good, and you know it, right?
Right. Yeah, I felt like that's also, with how much we worked. In the beginning, like I said, there was a lot of doubt about how our team's going to be, even on the offensive side. When Coach Ridenauer coming back, there's still question marks how's the new quarterback going to do, Jordan? How's our wide receivers looking? Because no one knew about them. And I just felt as the season went on, we just got more confident.
I think Cleveland does this thing. I'm curious to hear your take on it as an insider. They do this thing sometimes, and I don't know where it started or how it gets going. Almost we're the underdog. No one believes in us. Right? And I think I've seen it a couple of years where they use that as motivation. We're getting disrespected. I don't think it's true. I don't think when you talk about the powerhouse football team in the city, Cleveland always gets mentioned immediately. But I think you guys have done a really good job, whether true or not true, of playing the underdog or playing, we're not getting enough respect. Is that an accurate assessment from an outsider?
I would say in a way it is, because in the beginning of the season they ranked La Cueva #1 and Centennial, and we just felt like we've worked, even though we lost the previous year's state championship, right. We weren't just a terrible team all of a sudden, but we still had a lot to prove, which we ended up doing.
Now, I did see late in the season, James Yotis of the Albuquerque Journal on his podcast, he ranked some teams, right? And that had to be motivating, right?
Yeah.
Because talk about that.
They put us as
3, right?
I think number 2 or number 3, because they had Centennial #1, then I think La Cueva #2, and then us, or it was interchangeable between us and La Cueva. They had Centennial #1. And then we just took that into motivation. Then we ended up playing Centennial in the semifinals. we played really well then, and then after that played La Cueva.
So, but is this something that in the building are coaches kind of like feeding into this? Like, look, these guys, look, they don't think you're good. They don't think you're, or is it something that the players kind of use as motivation? Where does this come from? Because I personally think it's hilarious.
I would say it's mostly our coaches wise. They focus on us. How do we make us better as a team, as a collective? We don't really try to find like external motivation. Mostly just like team motivation. Like,
But that is external motivation, right? I mean,
right. In a way, I mean, some players can. I tend not to because I feel like that kind of takes my mindset away from like what's my real purpose for playing each game. So, yeah.
Right. But I mean, there's definitely a going into some of those games. Like, I just always laugh when there's some teams that just can't play the underdog role, right? So like when Cleveland runs around saying we're disrespected, I just think it's a little funny, right? I mean, because you can't disrespect the king of the mountain, right? Like, I mean, so I just always wanted to get an insider's perspective to that. I wonder where it came from, players, coaches, whatever. Because I think it's kind of funny, but a lot of good teams do that, don't they? They find the smallest things to motivate themselves, don't they?
Because every little thing could help. Like, people don't understand, like, the littlest things can change how the outcome of a game is. So I feel like we kind of used it, but not as much as people would think with the underdog.
You watch the Michael Jordan documentary, right? And, you know, you see him playing video clips on that iPad. And, like, he takes everything personally, right? Like, you see the greatest athlete maybe of my time. You're younger than me, obviously. But the greatest athlete of my time, Michael Jordan, literally uses everything to get pissed and motivated.
I'm not going to say names. But we had a couple players do that. Watch film on each other or themselves or other teams just to find that extra little bit of motivation.
Right. Now that you're done, no more high school games to play. Who did you hate more, La Cueva or Volcano?
Definitely Volcano.
Okay.
Yeah,
why Volcano?
Because ever since my Yaffle, so when I was in Yaffle, I played for Rio Rancho Rams, and they used to be the one team that always like beat us, and they were like always the hardest team, our biggest rivalry. So I would say I hated always. I don't want to say the word hated. I would say more anticipated that game than La Cueva's game.
Right. There's definitely the rivalry that you guys have built, though, with a couple of different schools, right? Like, let's talk about La Cueva first, right? Because at least to me, to an outsider, the last 3-4 years, I go into every football season thinking, okay, why even bother? We know what's coming at the end. Cleveland versus La Cueva, right? So it's been such a just natural. They've been your natural dance partner, right? Talk about that.
I would say, like, after, what was it, my sophomore year, whenever we beat them, I feel like that's when the rivalry really started. That's when, like, for some reason they had a whole bunch of confidence going into that next season, which did help them at the end because they did beat us. So I felt like it was just kind of now it's just going to be a back and forth type of thing because when people think of like state championship of New Mexico, they probably think of us in La Cueva. Like, I mean, Centennial was really good this year, but like I feel like most people thought of us in La Cueva being at the end.
And then I think what has added to that rivalry, and you know what, like I don't care if I'm saying something I'm not supposed to be saying, if I'm peeling the curtain back, but those teams don't like each other.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
The players don't like each other, and I can say honestly, the coaches really don't care for each other.
Yeah,
right? Like, and you're gone now. You're graduated, so there's no more left to be played. But the players don't like each other, and there's a natural rivalry with the coaches there too, isn't there?
Right. So like, I mean, there's a few players I have friendships with on the other team, but not much at all. We don't talk to them. Like, we never hang out with them like we do on maybe some other teams. So. And on the coach's perspective, I would think they're not big fans of each other on both sides.
Right. Like I talked to enough coaches on both staffs, and they don't outwardly, say bad things, but you just the way they tense up and the way they talk about, like they don't like each other. You can tell, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like one coaching staff thinks they're the best, the other coaching staff thinks they're the best. Player, so like it's just such a good rivalry, and in a sport where in New Mexico there's not enough good teams, right? The fact that you can bank on those two teams being good and being a rivalry and not liking each other, it's got to be pretty special when you guys hook up, right?
I would say that because you mentioned a little bit ago how the coaches like tense up. I would never say like they said necessarily bad things about each other, but it's always like in an aggressive tone. So. Yeah, not the biggest fans of each other though, for real. Yeah.
We'll break into some other rivalries. Obviously, there's the big City of Vision rivalry with the Rams, and then for some reason everyone hates Volcano too, right? So we'll talk about those other two rivalries with AJ when we get back.
We would like to thank the following sponsors for making this broadcast possible. For over 20 years, Evergard Roofing and Solar has been committed to customer service. Locally owned and operated, Evergard offers both commercial and residential roofing and solar services. For more info, please call 505-821-9543. Evergard Roofing and Solar are proud supporters of ProView Sports Network and New Mexico Youth Athletics. ProView Networks would like to thank the following sponsors for making this broadcast possible. Hans Whitler Automotive, German car maintenance and repair in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Call 505-294-7684 or visit hanswhitlerauto.com.
Back with Cleveland Storm's A.J. Manning, we were talking about the intense games during your career with La Cueva, but really the two natural rivalries in your district are the crosstown rival, Rio Rancho, and then, of course, Volcano, because for whatever reason, nobody likes them, right? Like, everyone I talk to has a rivalry with them.
Right.
So talk about those two. Which one is kind of, they're probably unique in their own ways, right?
I would say Rio Rancho is more unique because how close they are to us. Like, there's a really thin line about what school you go to based on where you lived. And I guess it has always been a rivalry just because how close they are to us.
Right.
And then Volcano, I just feel like they have a different type of attitude than anybody else in the state when they go towards games, how they're talking during, after, before the games. So I just feel like they just kind of try to bring every game up as high as they can and bring up the hype.
But, I mean, as an athlete, you got to love it, right? You're like, especially, I mean, if I was as good as you, I'd want everyone to bring the smoke, right? Because you always prove it on the field, right? So how does that kind of, I mean, I'm sure those hype games, those games with all that shit talking are a lot more fun than a 50-0 blowout against, PV, right?
Definitely, I feel like whenever they bring up the hype or anything like that, it makes you feel like you need to win the game a little bit more than you did like the day before you heard anything like that. And I also feel like it helps to like your team come together when you hear them talking bad about you and like your best friends that you worked out with this whole year. So I feel like that also brings, like more motivation towards the game.
When I was going to school, like rivalries were different. Like the rivalry pranks were like real. Like I know now there's a social media component to it now, right? Where the teams kind of, not the teams, the schools I should say, have social media, kind of goes back and forth. Like back in my day, it was like, I mean, I don't want to tell you some of the stuff that was done because I don't want to promote that kind of behavior. I'll tell you during the commercial break. But like we did like real stuff that like, but no social media back then. Now it seems like it's a lot of social media driven, isn't it?
I feel like it's social media now because I would say it's a little bit more safe because just how everything is now. So I feel like on the social media side, it's probably just, a bit more safer.
And there's some good smack talking going on social media, right?
There always is. Like, people find the most creative things to say about one another, so it's pretty cool.
How much of that do you, like, I mean, do you try to tune it all out? And I don't believe athletes when they say they tune it all out because I just don't believe it. Like, it's the real world, right? So how much of that are you seeing during the week?
During the week, I see majority of it, I guess. Like, I'm not going to, post something or anything like that. I've never been that type of person. But, like, I would definitely, like, just if it pops up, I would definitely, take a little laugh at it and just, just keep going.
And how much of that you guys use for motivation?
We don't really use that for motivation, I would say. We just kind of, like, laugh at it, have a good time with it. Like, we always think it's kind of funny. So
and there is some creative stuff. I'm not going to lie, right? It's got to be pretty rewarding, though, as you look back on your career now. If you just look at those three schools, what's your record against those three schools?
La Cueva, we lost.
If you combine, I mean, you haven't lost you haven't lost very many games to those three schools.
Okay,
never lost to
Rio. Never lost to Volcano. Never lost to Rio. Lost to La Cueva twice.
Right. So
wait, twice or I think 2 times we lost to them. I'm not sure. Once or twice.
So I mean, you came out on the winning end of rivalries a lot, right?
Yes. So I'm thankful for that. I never have to think about I could have played hard at this game because ended up winning.
What I want to touch a little bit on just the standard of excellence that Coach Garza, Coach Ridenauer, coaches before them have set over there. Like, talk about that. You played football at a really, really special place. Talk about that.
Ever since I was a freshman, you always look up to the JV, to the varsity squad, and you see how hard they're working, how everything's so intense. Even when Coach Ridenauer left, going into my sophomore year, everything stayed the same. It was still all intense and everything like that, which was, kind of special to me, and it kind of set me forward where I need to be and how hard I need to work for everything.
And what were some of your early memories before you started, racking up all those patches? What were some of your early memories there when you were just a young pup coming in?
I would say when I was a freshman, because there's a different field that we practice on, we had to pass the main field where the varsity and JV squads practice. I just remember I used to see Coach Ryan running around with the offense to each different segment of the practice, and I used to think that was like a college thing. I thought that was like the most intense, intimidating thing ever. And then also, my very first game when I got pulled up, it was against West Mesa, and we ended up 50-pointing them by halftime my freshman year. So and that kind of just set the standard after that.
What were there some early mentors there? Who were some of the upperclassmen that really kind of put their arm around you and that put you under their wing?
I would say the two most upperclassmen that helped me out was Nick Trujillo and Devontae Shendo, which is a safety my sophomore year. He was a senior, and Nick Trujillo, and me and him have a good relationship.
So what are some of the things that they kind of talked to you about when you were a freshman?
I would say Devontae, he was a little bit quieter on the quieter side, I would say, but he kind of accepted me, and because I barely started playing safety my sophomore year. I was running back my whole life, so I started playing safety, and he started to help me, and we just started playing the video game together a little bit, and that also kind of helped, and he gave me little tips and tricks with that. And then Nick Trujillo, he's just always motivating. I wasn't really too good at friends with him my freshman year, and my sophomore year, I used to guard him because I was a scout team player, so, we kind of became natural friends off of that. And then going into the basketball season, he always just had me under his wing and always, helped me with anything I needed.
I think Nick's going to run for mayor one day. What do you think?
Maybe.
He's just that kind of guy,
Yeah.
right? I could see younger guys gravitating towards him, and I could see him treating young guys really well. He just seems like, from when I've been around him, when I've had a chance to talk to him, he just gives me those vibes, leadership vibes.
Yeah, he's definitely a leader. Also one of the best athletes, I've ever played with, I would say. And yeah, he's a character. I will say that he's a character.
Right. And then you watch him maybe during warm-ups, or you run into him on the street. You wouldn't think this is the best receiver in the city.
Yep.
Right? Like the athleticism, the skill set, and everything. When you see stuff like that, when you see that high level, how does it change your routine as a young freshman, as a young sophomore, when you're walking into a program that has established stars like that? How does it change your whole work ethic and regimen?
Because I remember going into my sophomore year, I wasn't, didn't know what to expect too much, just a little bit. So when I saw him, doing everything against the scout players that were going now, just destroying them, catching everything, I was like, okay, I got to pick it up if I want to be able to compete with this guy one day.
Right. Hey, I want to get into a top 5 list. I'm sure you're familiar with the program, but top 5 things we don't know about A.J. Manning. Number 5.
Number 5, my favorite food is octopus with squid ink.
Okay. Can't that kill you?
Octopus ink can.
Okay. So, all right. And where would you find that here in Albuquerque?
In Albuquerque, maybe at Papados, they might have it there.
All right. Okay.
Anywhere else, I'm not sure.
When did that become your favorite food?
I would say a couple years ago, because when I was a little kid, I was allergic to all seafood, and then it slowly just been going away. So now I'm only allergic to 4 types of fish: tuna, salmon, trout, and catfish. So I just tried that, and I really liked it.
Where did you try this?
It was in some seafood restaurant in Taos, so I don't really remember. Yeah,
that's an interesting one. Number 4.
Number 4, I would say I had the biggest hands on my football team last year.
Okay,
yeah.
All right. And how does that help you?
It's good, just catching the ball overall. I just feel like the bigger hands, the more it helps, helps catching the ball.
All right. Number 3.
Number 3 is that my whole life growing up, I've always had 2 dogs. No matter what, always have 2 dogs.
2 dogs. All right. What kind of dogs are we talking?
Okay, so far I've only had 6. So I've had 2 pit bulls, then I had 2 French mastiffs, and then now I have 1 Cane Corso and 1 French bulldog.
Okay. All right. Number 2.
Number 2 is also kind of going to tie in back to my hands, that I wear a size 14 shoe.
All right.
So
Same here.
Most people don't really kind of expect that,
All right. It's a lot harder to shop for shoes, right? When you get into the 14.
Yeah,
right?
mostly online. So
Yeah, exactly. All right. And the number 1 thing we don't know about A.J. Manning?
That I like skiing is my favorite sport.
Okay, so skiing. So when did you get into that?
When I was 5 years old, my cousins, they lived in Colorado in Aspen Snowmass. And then one time for my birthday, my mom took me up there with them. And they kind of put me on the mountain, and ever since, just had a love for it.
Okay. How often? I'm sure coaches probably didn't like you going skiing during the season, right?
Oh, no, I never skied during the season.
Oh, even
Yeah.
even between seasons, coaches have to cringe, right? Because you got pretty bad injury skiing, right? So
I mean, you
how much
can.
skiing do you do?
Oh, I do a lot of skiing. I
Really?
would say this season alone, I've been 15, 20 times maybe.
All right, nice.
Mostly in Santa Fe because, that's the most convenient mountain for me.
Are you a Winter Olympics guy?
I do watch a lot
All
of the Winter
right.
Olympics.
I think the coolest thing, the one event. Well, other than I'm a big curling guy.
Okay.
Curling's cool, but when it gets to skiing, the big ski jumping, man. Because like I grew up, I was born in Germany.
Okay.
Germans usually dominated ski jumping, so ski jumping's a big thing. Have you ever wanted to try that?
Not necessarily like big long ski jumping, but I've liked, like the park skiing and
Right.
even snowboarding is really cool.
Where could you even try, like, getting back to the ski jumping thing? Is there even a place to try that? Right, because you have to have the big thing and then the longer skis. Like, where would you go about even trying that?
There's places in Utah that you can
Okay.
practice in that like goes into like it lands on like a big like air mattress type of thing, and there's also a few in Colorado, and then just like for the park like little jumps, rails, and things like that, they have some in Santa Fe, and then I was just in Taos this past weekend, so they have some nice jumps and stuff up in Taos.
Okay. What how much time do we have left here? I think we're. All right, we'll take one more break,
Okay.
and then when I get back, I want to talk about you're obviously committed already, so I want to talk about that whole process
Okay.
when we get back.
All right.
Hi, my name is Daniel Chavez, and this is my business partner, David Chavez. We are the owners of Indeed Safety. Indeed Safety is a local safety consulting company helping our clients with their safety needs for their projects.
One of the things we pride ourselves as a construction safety company is helping our men and women in construction get home safe every day to their families. Indeed Safety is a proud supporter of ProView Network.
Back with AJ Manning, we were talking a little bit about, we were talking about a lot, but I do want to get into kind of the next level because obviously, you want to keep playing. You have been called the best DB in the state, so with that obviously comes some opportunities at the next level, right? So talk about that.
Okay, so I'm committed to Colorado State University Pueblo, and that's
Did the skiing have something to do with that?
I mean, not really, kind of. I mean, I like cold. I like playing in the
Okay,
cold.
all right.
I always just liked it because of the skiing, I guess.
Okay.
So I went to the camp last year in the summer, and I performed pretty well in front of Coach Mack Alexander, and he's the safeties and DBs coach. And he told me that he liked me. He liked how I was performing, everything like that. He said he's going to come and get me later. So after the season, got a call from him, got an offer, and was really excited about that. Then I committed sometime in December, like maybe a month or so after I got the offer, because I kind of love Colorado. That's like my favorite spot to go. Love their program. Love Coach Vigil. He's the head coach. How he presents himself. How they're all about God, because can't go nowhere without God. And then Coach Vasquez is also the the defensive coordinator, and I just like their program.
Were there some other RMAC schools in the mix there, or would you just fall in love right away when you were at camp and just you liked everything?
So there was also, I got an offer from Highlands as well. And then towards the end, after I already committed to Colorado State Pueblo, Fort Lewis wanted me to go out there, but I kind of already had my mind made up where I was going to go. And my very first offer was Eastern. Going into the summer of my senior year, I got an offer with me and Michael Haynes. So, that was always kind of special for me.
Yeah, there's probably not a lot of skiing going on in Portales.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Right?
Yeah,
So,
no.
yeah, you definitely went the right direction into the RMAC, and then you have a chance to compete against some of those other schools that you just mentioned. So that's kind of cool. How much of a relief was that? Because I know those offers didn't come till later, right? Like, there had to have been some nights where you're thinking, like, man, are they coming?
Yeah, I always, there's always nights like that, but you just gotta trust the process. Just gotta pray about it. Everything like that always helped. And yeah, just God fulfilled the wishes, so that's great.
What about away from football? What do you want to study there?
I'm gonna go to be a chiropractor.
Okay.
They have my major there. It's called pre-chiropractic, and that's probably gonna take year and a half or so, and then I got to take another 4 to 5 years to really get my license for it.
Right. We talked about the program as a whole, right? Mm-hmm. So, like this year, you became the leader, kind of, right? So, what were some of the things that you passed down?
I would say some things I passed down is just like not to be afraid to ask each other like, hard questions and not to motivate each other on like little things. And also I'm going to go back to what I've always said, like always try to hang out with each other. Like in the very beginning of the season, I had like a pool in my house. So I had like a little pool party for like the defensive guys. And I feel like that really helped, had like food in the backyard, brought us together as a whole.
Right. What's the number one memory when you look back at your career as a Cleveland Storm? What's the one that sticks out?
I would say after every home game, everyone would come to my house and we'd make like waffles and like pancakes and everything, and it'd be like both sides of the ball would be coming to my house. So it was like everybody was invited. We always had a fun time.
Right, man, that sounds like reason to win, right
Yeah,
there,
it was,
right? Mm-hmm. Well, good luck the rest of the way. I know we've been trying to link up here, and it's been a couple of weeks or a couple of months since the schedule has ended. But what a nice, phenomenal career, and what a way to finish it, right? State
yes,
championship.
sir. I'm so happy.
Thank you so much for coming in, and
Yes, sir.
thanks for
Thank
watching,
you.
everybody. Good night.